we're going to be doing this as a bit of a review of Cyber Weekend this morning. These lives we started back at the very start of lockdown, so 18 months ago, and it all goes back to the core business mission that has been guiding FashMash since we founded it nearly 10 years ago. That is to encourage dialogue and open conversation to shape the future of fashion. I also wanted to say, before we go any further, a big thank you to our sponsor, Klaviyo. They've been sponsoring us for about 18 months as well now. They are an e-commerce marketing company for brands of all types, shapes and sizes, from Fenty to Marc Jacobs and FashMash. We use them for our email marketing, and we have been truly impressed by their targeted insights, their precision marketing that they offer, and also their customer service. If you would like to give them a try, go to klaviyo.com/FashMash, and that is spelled klaviyo.com/FashMash. We were also very happy to host our first roundtable breakfast with Klaviyo 2 weeks ago, kind of at this time. Yeah. And it was the first time that we had had a roundtable discussion in 2 years in physical, real life format. And my gosh, it was stimulating. I'm delighted to say that 2 of our guests from that breakfast will be joining us today. They are Eve, the founder of Bundlee, and Francesca Shuck, who is the brand director, senior brand director, I should say, at Science Magic Inc. So they're going to be joining us shortly. They will introduce themselves far better than I'm sure I can. So really, I think it's just a question of a little bit. Should we do a little bit of scene setting, Rachel? Because obviously we're coming up to a week since Cyber Weekend. Let's scene set for everyone and let them know the context in which we're discussing this today.
Well, I'm sure that no one could have missed the fact that it was indeed Black Friday, Cyber Weekend. It was everywhere and anywhere that people looked. I think for us, it's around what does that mean for our community? You know, how are we thinking about the sort of different implications of it? The short version, I think, is that there was a whole lot of focus geared towards revenue. You know, how can I push as much as possible during this time? And then on the other hand, into all things sustainability. So hence why we're calling this Cyber Weekend: Commercials versus COP26, or Consumerism versus the Climate Crisis. Those two opposing forces that really do make up the sort of basis of our industry at the moment. This time of year is the ultimate contradiction in retail. Everyone is pitching heavily one way or the other. There is loads and loads, or there was loads and loads in the way of anti-Black Friday messaging yet again, but there was also mega discounts being seen across manner of all brands and retailers, particularly at the mass end of the market otherwise. I think it's important for us to remember that for many of the latter, this is of course where they pick up something like 50% in some cases, if not more, of their revenue for the entire year. So to give a few examples of what the spread looked like, at one end we had the likes of Next and M&S in the UK, opting not to participate at all in the Black Friday frenzy, and that sparked a lot of headlines around things like, are shoppers tiring of all of this hype? I think we can probably agree that that wasn't the case with the number of sales that we saw. But then at the other end, we saw the likes of Ray-Ban, who actually shut down their entire shop online. So you literally couldn't shop if you wanted to on that day. All you could do was visit their store in person, where they had been taken over by a resale clothing platform. So you couldn't buy anything new, which I think was a really nice, very clever take on it. But then, of course, there came the shocks at the other end of the extreme, like Pretty Little Thing, of course, one of the brands within the Boohoo portfolio, and they were selling items at 100% markdown. So literally handing them out.
Giving them away.
And that sparked outrage, understandably, amid activists particularly, who voiced just how much it said for the way that such brands value the product, their workers, even their customer. And I think more to the point, it also shows us just how much overproduction there is going on in this industry, because ultimately the reason they would have been able to do that is because it's cheaper for them to give it out for free than it is to discount to dispose,
to incinerate it. Yeah.
Sales this weekend were 9.2 billion predicted for the UK alone, so absolutely huge. And let's not forget as well that Black Friday comes hot off the heels of Singles Day in China, and sales there absolutely mind-blowing, $85 billion this year, so enormous. And consumption in that market is due to double to approach 13 trillion by 2030. So the mind boggles. And hopefully that sets the scene a little bit of what we're talking about here, like such extremes of what's going on around the way that we operate in this world of consumption versus the climate crisis, basically.
And those stats that you, thank you for sharing those stats. I didn't know the Rayburn one and Pretty Little Thing. I actually, the contrast between them as well is so impactful. So yeah, I really want our guests to join. A little bit more around the discussion that we had at breakfast, where Rachel literally came up with the content, the little byline of commercialism versus COP26 on the spot in a speech. I thought it was brilliant. We had members join from brands including Ganni, Net-a-Porter, and the conversation, because it's real life, was really dynamic and really diverse. And there were, I would say, as we're going to see on the call now, there are two extremes, but there isn't really for brands yet one route, which is the given route that they all need to take. And that's why it's going to be such a good debate today. Hello to both of you.
Hi.
Wonderful to see you. Look, first of all, to kick off, could we possibly have an introduction from each of you about what you each do and what your respective companies do?
Sure. Shall I kick it off?
Yes, please, Francesca.
As kindly said, I'm the Senior Director of Brand at Science Magic, and we are a brand building company, so connecting brands to their community, and I look after the fashion portfolio there. So plenty to say.
And actually, maybe you could let us know a few of the brands that you look after. I think that's always really useful from this perspective.
Yeah, sure. There's a real mix from Depop to Versace and kind of everything in between. So a big array and the likes of Allbirds. And on the other side of the business, we work with Glossier. So yeah, there's a big mix of clients, all who approach this topic very differently. But we're definitely seeing trends, but we'll come back to that.
Great, thank you. Eve, how about you?
Hello everyone, I'm Eve. I'm the founder of Bundlee. So Bundlee is the UK's first baby clothing rental service. So you can see some of our clothes behind me here. Basically, parents can rent a bundle of clothes, and then as their little one grows, they swap the clothes for the next size up. And we take those return clothes, clean them, sanitize them, and then send them on to the next renting family.
Perfect. Thank you very much indeed. Rachel and I are both users of Bundlee, so you're preaching to the converted here. Right, let's first question for both of you. And obviously, Francesca, when I pose this to you, this is from the perspective of for your brands. How is this holiday period looking for each of you this year? Eve, if we go to you first of all.
Yeah, so for kind of the Black Friday time, we actually did a Green Friday campaign. So it was a 12-day campaign trying to get people to join Bundlee with a 30-day free trial. So it was like a risk-free way for them to try this new way of more sustainably getting the clothes that they need, like right when they need them. So it was like really positive for us, and we got like a really positive response from people. It gave people, as I said, the opportunity to give Bundlee a try rather than be purchasing lots of baby clothes when all the sales came round. We actually launched it on the 19th of November, so earlier than the Black Friday weekend intentionally, so that we could offer people this as like a way to get the clothes they need and then not be swayed by all kind of the impulse buys of the actual Black Friday weekend.
Offer an alternative, absolutely.
Yeah.
Francesca, how about for your clients?
Yeah, I think, needless to say, there's an enormous amount of pressure for all of our clients. You know, Eve and everyone who owns their own business, been, you know, it's an incredibly challenging time, obviously, but this quarter, I think, presents a huge challenge. So I think the pressure to discount, etc., is really present. And I think the need to stay front of mind with your consumer in whatever way that is really fundamental. So I think whether that's specific Black Friday activity or just more broadly over this, and as we go into 2022, certainly the pressure is real. In terms of our client mix, we've seen a real, definitely a shift away from Black Friday, which is good to see. I think, I mean, we can talk a bit more, maybe a bit later about that, but yeah, there is definitely a move away, and I think Rachel really highlighted those contradictions, though, that
yeah,
be wide.
It's really interesting, isn't it? I mean, yeah, it's kind of you sort of get both sides, sort of. I mean, I obviously sit very much on the sort of the other side, but it is really interesting. I think it's a huge challenge that we're facing, and I want to throw to both of you, Francesca, maybe to you first, around how do we balance the difference between markdowns, needing to shift product, particularly so we don't end up with, you know, all of this excess, you know, that we have to somehow dispose of. But how do we do that in the wake of COP26, in the wake of understanding? And I've written down here, against the backdrop of the climate crisis, but actually I've changed my mind and I've written foreground of the climate crisis, because I really do think it needs to be the foreground. That needs to be there before everything else that we think about, and it's not for most businesses. But I'd love your opinions on sort of how do we balance those things?
Yeah, well, as you've made clear, with difficulty, but I think really it's taking a step, and certainly with our clients, it's thinking about, for us, the goal really is enduring value. So rather than creating a moment of high sales, it's actually how do you create enduring value around. So prioritizing long-term loyalty over the short-term numbers, and really stand behind your point of view. And I think in order to be able to do that, you really have to have that engaged community. So your example of Ray-Ban, who I should caveat, they're not a client or anything, but it's a really amazing example. They have such faith in their community. They know that they're on that journey with. So there's that enduring value is inherent in what they've created. So I think that is ultimately the way of balancing the demands. But it's not, you know, it's not a specific one.
Eve, I don't know if you have a view on that as well. I mean, when you're a business like your own, it's relatively, I don't want to say straightforward. Of course, it's not straightforward, but you know, you're able to have a focus, a bit like Ray-Ban, and that this is where you're at. But I'd love your view on the industry in a wider sense.
Yeah, because I feel like the question, it's beyond kind of balancing this Black Friday weekend and the climate crisis. It's actually, okay, how do we balance the overall industry? Because the industry is built on excess production, having these sales, and I think this weekend definitely highlights it, but it just makes you think about, like, yeah, the overall industry and how it's just built on a model that is not sustainable with the forefront of the climate crisis.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's a good point. I mean, it's the sort of inherent systemic issue, really, isn't it, around all of this. Do either of you guys have a view on that fast fashion space? You know, what we saw with the likes of Pretty Little Thing, and do we live in a world where those kind of businesses can change?
I think it's a non-negotiable, isn't it? But I think at the moment the onus is fully on the consumer, really, and to make those businesses change. And I think that's the consumer, you know, us all as consumers. It's a big responsibility when people have, you know, limited funds. It's a big, you know, big decisions to take. And I know the data is still conflicted around, you know, I think we've talked about this before, around how, yes, that, you know, we all really care. It's very difficult to expect everybody to vote with that as their number one consideration when they're everything. So I think in terms of fast fashion, really up to the plate, love that to come from the businesses themselves, but ultimately it's likely that governments have got to step up, which, you know, we saw at COP26. We're not there yet.
Yeah, agreed.
It really felt like with Pretty Little Thing sale, it was just like they were continuing to like devalue clothes and making them feel even more disposable. Like, okay, quickly jump on the site, get this piece, but you don't need to worry because you're not paying anything and you can just wear it once and it's done. So yeah, it felt like it was just a massive devaluation of our clothes.
Yeah, they wouldn't have had returns either, would they? It's very smart, like horrific, but
Yeah,
smart
because you're not
business
going to
move.
return something that is free.
That's free.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why bother?
Why bother?
So in terms of getting rid of excess stock, it was, yeah, awfully genius. Oh, that's horrible.
I would love to delve in with each of you. Some of your favorite examples, case studies of those who did something different and those who did something to an extreme, like misguided. I mean, just a personal one from me. Birdsong relaunched their Transparent Friday that actually won an award from Draper's magazine, and it's brilliant. It's a manifesto, and the customer is able, once they've read the manifesto, but only then, to activate and choose either a 15% discount on the clothing or a 25% discount. And that's what they're able to decide, having read the manifesto and discovered the brand and find out actually how much the making of their clothes costs and who it pays. Eve, how about you? What are some favorite examples that you've witnessed, whether they're good, the bad, the ugly?
Mine was just like a general trend that I noticed, that people were actually extending their offers, so it wasn't just for the Black Friday period. And I think that's actually really positive in some ways, and I mean we did it ourselves, because it allows people to actually like consider their purchase a lot more, so you're not getting those impulse buys of, okay, I need to do it today because it's only available for one day. It was like, okay, I can consider this over a week and then make my decision.
Yeah, less of a frenzy. Francesca, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, the things that I loved very much, like what you did with your business, and our client Depop, the resale platform, did something similar. So they did a Black Friday campaign, but because the model is inherently circular, they have they're in a position to talk and to bring and offer something competitive. So I think it was, using that moment to highlight this is a point around actually have already systemic change and looking at those brands and what they're doing might be fine, but actually it's 365 days a year that your model is changed, one day or a week or whatever. So I think for me, those were the brands and the businesses that I really loved to see, and to see them shouting about it as well. And I think in terms of the other side, rather than, I won't name any names, but definitely a trend that I saw a lot. I was thinking about it as like Black Friday by stealth. So a lot of, on the more premium side, a lot of businesses that essentially were doing Black Friday, not calling it that, very quite specific language of sort of private sales or your VIP customer.
Yeah.
Better. There's no way I'm a VIP customer. So it's heavy discounting, but trying to sort of premiumize it, I guess. It was quite something I hadn't noted before. So from a comms marketing point of view, they were aware of Black Friday not being one to align with, but ultimately didn't want the opportunity. So that was quite interesting and not great evolution. I mean, clever in a way, but still not progress, I guess.
Yeah, that is a really good point. It's a really, really good point. I was thinking that as well, with the ones that said they actively weren't taking place, and I went and had a look at their websites, and all of them still have clearance sections. And I was thinking, I wonder how much extra clearance has gone in for this weekend without mentioning it, or if it has, it wasn't on the homepage. So that was a positive in terms of the sort of direction for the sort of customer travel, but customer journey. Where do you guys think the consumer is on all this? Before it kicked off, we were hearing, maybe consumers are getting a bit tired of it. Obviously in the UK, we saw record sales. Where do you think everyone's at?
I think they are starting to get a bit cynical. And I think that's because these deals often aren't really deals. There was this Which study that found, and this was outside of the fashion industry, so it was looking at tech and homeware, but it actually found that you could get the same products for the same price or cheaper across the rest of the year, 99% of the time.
Really?
Yeah. So,
Wow.
and that was like 6 of the major retailers. So yeah, I think people were starting to realize actually maybe this deal isn't as great value as it seems.
Fascinating. I hadn't seen that. Wow. Francesca, what about you?
Yeah, it's difficult. I think, we've all had economically not great times. I actually think there is fatigue on some level, but at the same time, people were still shopping. So it's a bit of a one in that sense, I think. And maybe that's why the sort of Black Friday by stealth was that thing. The language, maybe there's fatigue, but people are voting for it still on the whole. So, well, and I guess that goes back to the point of, at the moment, the onus is on the consumer to change behaviours, but actually that's not, it's an unfair sort of distribution responsibility, really.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've been conditioned to love a bargain, haven't we? That doesn't just go away overnight. It does if you're sort of really bought into changing your own behaviour and sort of forcing yourself down that line. But I think even the best of us, that are in that space can be convinced otherwise very easily. So there has to be these wider forces to actually instigate that change, I think, for sure. Rosanna, any other points from you? You had loads that you loved.
Oh, yes, I did. I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to make this very, very quick, but some other key examples that I absolutely loved. Omni Nana, the founder, is a member of FashMash, brilliant, multi-brand, but they're all sustainable online platform. In the fashion space, and just a really impactful letter that she sent out on Black Friday. And I think maybe we could end on these words, actually. She said, "Is fashion broken this Black Friday?" That was the subject of the email. And she asked, she stated, sorry, "If you haven't guessed already, we won't be coming at you with big discounts this weekend, as our pieces are fairly priced. Trust me, I've spent a lot of time doing the maths behind the scenes." And I think that's what it comes down to. We all love a bargain, but if a brand has properly done its maths, every single person in that supply chain should be paid fairly, and that is reflected in the price. And any discounts, somebody is missing out. So let's bear that in mind when we seek those Christmas bargains. But thank you both for joining us and for bringing that idea of stealth Black Friday is also that's really hit me as well, because now I now realize I saw it so much. The power of language once again.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for having us, both of you. Always a pleasure.
Of course. Thank you for coming. Very stimulating start to the day. And so thank you to Eve, thank you to Francesca, thank you to our sponsor Klaviyo, and we are back next week for a bit of a review of the year, so we look forward to seeing you then. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.